Hello everyone and welcome to Inside Leather History, a Fireside Chat. I'm Doug OKeeffe, I'm the host and producer of the chats, which are a program of the Leather Archives and Museum. Today, February 2nd, it's 2023, I have to think of the year, and this is Rancho Mirage, California. I'm at the home of Will Angell, who has been, I have to say, incredibly gracious and helpful because I couldn't manage my tripod. So Will pulled out a tripod and got the whole thing going. Thank you.
My pleasure. I may not know a lot of different things, but I do know how to point a camera.
It was very gracious.
I have picked that up.
And I'm very appreciative.
Well, welcome. Thanks for coming.
And I have to say, this is the first time that I've ever interviewed anyone in your industry. Adult entertainment, or is it appropriate to say porn?
Yeah, I'm not offended by either.
Okay.
Sex worker, porn. The only one I'm sensitive to is porn star.
Why?
I don't know. I just think it's I just feel uncomfortable using that term. I'm a porn actor. I act in porn.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable identifying myself as a star in any industry.
Okay.
We all have our moments. Everybody that works in this may have a moment when they shine, but...
So do you mean you don't think there's been enough time and that disqualifies you? Or?
I don't know. I think it's... No, I don't know. I've never, and no matter what level of success I ever feel, I just don't feel comfortable using the word porn star. That's for other people to decide.
Okay.
That's porn is such an esoteric thing that you learn very quickly in this business that you cannot be everybody's cup of tea. And oddly enough, an eye-opener is how willing people are to let you know if you're not their cup of tea.
I can't help but pursue that statement a little bit.
Yeah.
Fill me in. What do you mean with that?
Well, I suppose when Liam and I started this in 2013, most of it was out of ignorance. We had never worked in porn. I wouldn't say I was a porn aficionado, that I watched a lot of porn. And it was just kind of very serendipitous the way it happened, and we fell into it. And it didn't take long to realize that when you expose yourself so completely, that you will get a combination of really nice, supportive people, and you will get people that feel obligated to tell you their opinion on really anything. And I've grown to feel a sympathy for people like that, because for me, just swipe away. You don't like, isn't that how it's done? Like, you look at something, you like it, you swipe one way, you don't like it, you swipe the other. No comments necessary. And I feel if somebody feels the need to comment on what we're doing wrong, that's not a referendum on me.
Right.
That's very much from wherever they're at.
Right.
And, lately my mantra has really been, with a few friends and with myself, of saying, it's not me.
Right.
It's never me. When you get that message at 3:00 in the morning on Instagram or something saying, hi, and then 2 minutes later it's like, how are you? And then a minute later it's like 4 question marks, and then the next one is like, you're an asshole. Like, you're not all that. What's wrong with you? So, and you were sleeping the whole time. You weren't even you were totally unaware of this. That's, when people don't return phone calls, when people feel blown off, it's like, my mantra is like, it's not you. It's not you. And you don't know what it is. And usually it's not at all what you think it is. You think it's some slight. And it's not. They just had something going on. They didn't see your message. They haven't been home. Their mom had a stroke. Shit happened.
Precisely.
Yeah, and people just, and this business in particular has illustrated that to me. How people identify themselves, what turns people on, how comfortable they feel with the things that turn them on. I mean, it's fascinating, really, because when you work in a business that people get a feeling of getting to know you, even if you don't know them and they're a stranger to you, they feel ingratiated to you, and they spill the beans. They really, I really get some messages that you can tell, like, and sometimes they come right out and say, I've never told anybody this, because we have a relationship, they feel they know me, and I find that fascinating. I'm whatever it is, I'm perfectly okay saying to somebody, that's great that you have found what you're into, but that's just not something that interests me. I'm okay with that, but I'm happy to, you could tell me that. I'm fascinated to, the things that turn men on. I'm more interested in what was the catalyst, what was the spark? What did you see as a kid or hear, or what image was it that just...
So I have to follow up on that. Excuse me. I have to follow up on that. What have people told you?
Well, lots of stuff. Some things were really too twisted to, but yeah, some things were really too twisted to repeat. But mostly you find that there's definitely a middle lane that a lot of people are in.
Okay. And
sometimes I get credit for having insight into the inner workings of young men's minds, when actually all I've done is really kind of listen all along and find that they give you certain clues and you can kind of take it from there.
I see,
and nobody's reading anybody's mind. They're just, like a lot of our fetishes in our community are not uncommon.
Right.
And you hear them over 10 years. I've kind of heard some things over and over again.
Have you ever felt intruded upon, uncomfortable?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Well, I try in my responses. Every now and then you might get a message that's so heartfelt, and you can really tell it's from a really good place, and you want to engage with a person and talk to them about different things. But when you feel like somebody is going over the line, I don't know that I can think of a perfect example right now, but kind of along the lines where it's like, I get it that this is what I do for a living, and I get it that I'm trying to be seen that in a sexual way by people.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that I'm going to spend my day talking somebody through a fantasy and getting them off, or just I don't know, just weird comments. I have a partner.
Yes.
And that's not going to change. So I suppose I would say the thing that really goes over the line with me is disregarding that fact, or talking to me like there's any chance that you're going to come between that, or you could do better in some way at making me happy. And I guess that probably bothers me the most, that people, you know what you've seen of us, but we have a real relationship that you're not part of, and you don't know how deep it is, and you don't know what goes on in it. I always think of the scene in The Great Gatsby when they're in New York City and Gatsby's trying to steal Daisy from Tom Buchanan, and Tom says to him, from his perspective, they have a terrible relationship. But Tom explains to him, you don't know what's between us, and you don't understand, you're not going to come between us.
Yeah.
And you may have everything in the world. You may have more money than him, you may be better looking than him, you may be in better shape than him, but you don't understand the ins and outs and the complexities and the fulfillment we get out of our relationship.
Yes.
And I suppose that's the other thing. I have no problem people coming for me. They can say whatever they want about me. I have learned to have sympathy for people that feel the need to lash out. Sometimes I feel like...
Lash out, but...
Well, sometimes I feel like if you present yourself in our community as a self-confident, self-assured man, with no body shame, no sex shame, good self-esteem, some people don't really care to see that if they don't feel that themselves, and they feel the desire to take you down a few pegs. I can live with that because, like my mantra, it's not me.
Right.
They're delivering something to me that's theirs, that
Yes.
ugliness belongs to them.
Yes.
I'm not taking it over for them.
Yes, that's
It's
true.
when they come for Liam. That's when you can say whatever you want about me, it'll roll off my back. I don't engage in, from people that don't know me from a hole in the wall, I don't engage in that stuff. But come for him. And there have been a few, the thing I'm most sensitive about, he's gotten criticism because he has a lot of tics. Liam has Tourette syndrome.
Oh.
Yeah, and...
You would never know that seeing a video. At least I...
If you knew what to look for, and some people have made comments like, he looks like he's on drugs because he's twitchy.
Oh, I see.
And the worst thing you can say to a person with Tourette syndrome is call them twitchy.
Yeah.
That does not go over well.
Yeah, it's very
with me, especially when people people have claimed that he does drugs or he's high or something, and that is not the case.
Yeah.
That will never be the case. Not porn anyway.
Let's come back to where I wanted to start before we went off and covered some wonderful material. I always like to ask my subject, tell me a little bit about where you're from, a little bit about your growing up, your family, your circumstances.
Okay. I grew up in a large family. I have 3 brothers and I have a sister. I'm the youngest of the 5. Growing up, my dad was in construction and built a house for my grandmother next door. So it was always like a posse. There was always just 7 of us everywhere we went. In the largest station wagon on the road. Yeah.
Did it have the wood paneling?
It did, yeah. It was a Chrysler Town and Country. It was the largest production vehicle made. And we had a Great Dane. So there was a lot going on in that car. And, I grew up in New England, in Rhode Island. And I would say I had a typical kind of New Englander, puritanical, uptight upbringing. My family wasn't particularly religious, so I suppose I lucked out there. My dad is Catholic and my mother's Protestant, and there was issues with my grandmother marrying a non-Catholic, and so that really turned both my parents off to religion. What they went through getting married, where clearly there were people not happy about it, that turned them off to it. So we were never particularly religious. I didn't have that burden on me. Or, I suppose you could look at it either way. I didn't have that support either. But
that's fair. Okay.
Yeah. Later on in life, I did become very active in our church when I was a teenager, and I was a youth leader there. But that was a long time ago. So, I was not really a good candidate for making porn. I was not a good candidate.
Okay.
I was pretty uptight. And I have to tell you, my impression of it now is totally different. The people that I've met in this business have been unusual, surprisingly much more educated than people would guess, much more accomplished than people would guess. And you find that a lot of people are just on this journey of self-discovery and becoming more positive in their sexuality and putting themselves out there. And I find that, to be really fulfilling. But I grew up in a big family. I, for the longest time, just felt like that's just not going to be for me. As a gay man, I'm not interested in getting married and adopting children. But I want a big family. Mm-hmm. So for the longest time, my fantasy was just kind of buying a big farmhouse, country somewhere, and just filling it with people. And all these, it is really what our website came out of, this idea of a chosen family.
Yes.
Of having these interpersonal relationships that develop naturally, just as they're meant to. And some become sexual and some are not sexual, but they're still very, I always have felt that the gay community could do a better job of mentoring the younger people as far as what our history is and the struggles that our community has gone through that is not taught to us, that we need to teach to each other. So,
Yes.
For places like the Leather Archives and places like, these repositories of this memory that we would lose otherwise if we don't share it with other people. And what I think is most interesting now is I just heard somebody say, and I thought it was brilliant, that it's easy for us to say as an older gay man, like, these young kids, they don't listen, you can't tell them anything, you try to tell them their history, they just want to part. You know what? That may be true, but I heard someone say, if you don't have a 20-something, if you're a man my age and you don't have a 20-something in your life right now, explaining to you how things have changed, explaining to you the state of the world that we live in right now, the state of the gay community, you will be lost. We need each other. We need to tell them what our history was before they came, and they need to tell us where it's gone since,
I can see that. They would also be the ones to, again, get our appliances working. When
Yes,
we can't do it ourselves.
My Wi-Fi works because I have a young partner.
So, coming back though to Cumberland, Rhode Island.
Oh, right, yeah.
There's a really unique distinction about your hometown.
There is.
I would love for you to tell the audience about that.
Right. So when there's a high school in Iowa that would beg to differ with me.
Okay.
Cumberland High School was the first high school in the United States where a gay couple attended the senior prom through court order.
Okay.
Yes, I believe there was a high school in Iowa where a couple went to the Sadie Hawkins dance or something. And I guess, I don't know, they didn't announce that they were going to do it, so they just showed up. But in our school, a gay couple, Aaron Frick and Paul Gerwood, bought tickets to go to the dance. They were told they couldn't. They sued the principal, they sued the school system.
Yes.
It went through the court system, and ultimately, the lower court found that they had to be allowed to go.
Yes.
It was appealed, and the school system appealed it to a higher court, but that case would not be heard before the prom took place, so they had to rely on the lower court's decision, and the couple had to be allowed to go. And so that little distinction in our little town, it was my older sister's prom, and it was in 1980, and I entered Cumberland High School in 1981. So, kind of a double-edged sword, where I found what my family's opinion of this was.
Okay.
You want to hope that people you care about are kind of on the right side of an issue, the fair side of an issue.
Yes.
And my family didn't see any problem with them going. My sister said, it's my prom, I'm going with my boyfriend, I am not paying attention to what they do. If they want to go to the prom, I don't care.
Beautiful.
And so it was a great thing for me to feel that support at home. And even if it wasn't overwhelming support, at least it wasn't like they weren't jumping on the bandwagon of let's all kill them.
Yes.
Because that element did exist.
That's true.
The town definitely took sides. We were dubbed Fagtown USA. It was not safe to tell people you were from Cumberland if you were a high schooler. Athletes could not wear their Cumberland jackets anywhere, they'd get beaten up.
And negative reaction to these.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now
So if you wore a Cumberland football jacket or something to the mall, you were going to either get assaulted, you were going to get made fun of, you were going to be called a fag, and you know how straight people get when people call them fags. They dish it out, but they sure can't take it.
Yes.
So in the wake of that, I entered high school, where everyone in town had taken sides, where there was a microscope on it. So
wow, that's tumultuous.
it was.
Yeah.
It was. I can't say that my high school career was my favorite period in my life. It was.
Is it for anyone?
Well, true. I remind myself, I had a friend in high school that I suspected he was gay in high school, but I didn't really know him well. And I got to know him better years later after graduating, and he told me that his father moved out of the house when he told his parents he was gay. His father moved out and would not move back in until he left.
Oh,
so I thought,
no.
So, it puts it in perspective. It's easy to say, God, this is such a burden. But at home, you know, I didn't have anything negative being said about these fags and how dare they think that they can come to a prom, you know. And even when my sister came home from the prom, the way she described it as just craziness. She said her friends were taking like their little Kodak disposable cameras and taking pictures of them and going outside and selling it to People magazine, or, you know, selling their film for, you know, because the press couldn't go inside. So the students took photos of them and went out and sold them.
Yeah.
So, and she said every time they danced, all the chaperones danced in a circle around them.
Oh my God.
Well, he had been assaulted in school. Funny, my bully's older brother beat him up. Yeah, funny. I wonder whatever's running in that family, you know.
Probably best not to know.
Yeah, well, I wish him the best.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. It's funny the confused feelings people have for their bullies. Like, he made my life miserable, but I'd still suck his dick.
Well, that's very generous anyway.
Right? I don't know that I would suck his dick, but I wouldn't hit him. I would no desire to hit him. So, yeah. So it was, Cumberland's claim to fame, Fagtown, USA.
How long did it take for this to sort of settle and this town to move on?
Well, at least my 4 years in high school. I graduated in '84. At least until then. I don't know what happened after I left, but I did not look back with any fond feelings, you know. So, and oddly enough, I spoke to Aaron online. I got to know him online a little bit. He moved to San Francisco and wrote a book called Rock Lobster right after, Confessions of a Rock Lobster, right after the incident. And it was funny, when I talked to him online, he knew my sister, and they didn't live far from us. And I could tell that he was very apprehensive about, he said, "You're the first gay student I've met from Cumberland since I left. And I'm almost afraid to ask you, like, what did it do to you? You know?" Like, he took a stand, but then he moved to San Francisco. And I'm not saying he did anything wrong. And I said, you know what? At the time, I wasn't crazy about it. At the time, I wasn't. It did not make my high school experience better.
Yeah.
It made it a lot harder.
Yeah.
But I look back on it now and think, if my little town played a role in gay people standing up for themselves and demanding equal treatment, well, then I am proud of that now.
Yes.
You know.
And no matter what, that will always be a definitive piece.
Yeah.
Always.
And now I salute his bravery.
Yeah.
Because it was not safe for him, and he did turn half the town against him. And his dad was like a general in the army, or, you know what I mean, like super Butch Daddy kind of, like, you know, he came from like this very like,
yes,
of course.
But you've just caused me to have a really wonderful thought. Maybe I ought to approach him for an interview.
Yeah, I think he's still in San Francisco.
We'll talk.
We'll
talk.
Yeah. And it was a pleasure to talk to him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's not for me to absolve any. You did what you felt was the right thing to do.
Yes.
And we all benefited from it.
Yes.
Because now they have alternative proms all the time. Now gay couples go to the, you know, and somebody had to do that.
Yes.
And God bless Iowa, whoever these people were in Iowa that my disclaimer is they may have the right to claim that they
And you may have to call it a tie or something there, who knows.
Yeah, but we ours definitely caused a bigger stir. It was, you know, it's like when you see these scenes with like all the national trucks, you know, all the trucks, all the reporters, and they're from all over the country. It's like, it's bizarre in a little town when that happens, you know, and for this.
Yes.
Cocksucking capital of America, you know, bless our hearts. Yeah, and I'm fine with that now. You know what I mean? I'm totally fine with that now.
I can see that, actually, and that's beautiful.
Yes, it's on my resume.
When we prepared for this interview, you said that you're a chameleon. Now, what did you mean by that?
Well, I suppose that kind of goes back to that experience. And I think people that change their stripes, change their colors, you know, it's an effort to fit in. It's you know, it's a desire to, like, fit in with whatever group you're with.
Yes.
And as a kid, I developed this habit of picking up accents really easily.
Oh.
And so when I would travel, or when I would be in a group of, people that were maybe not, English was not their first language, I would kind of adopt this odd
Okay.
accent. And I'm sure that was self-protection. I'm sure that was a desire to fit in. The idea of being a chameleon I wouldn't say I do that anymore, because it's hard to hide now.
Yes, I should think it would be. Yes.
But when I was younger, it was funny, I traveled to Canada once, and I don't remember I was getting my hair cut or a massage or something, and they were like, "You're not Canadian?" And I was like, "No." But you sound Canadian. I didn't even realize I was doing it.
Well,
but they were sure, you sound just like you're Canadian. And it was like, even on vacation, I was like picking up accents.
Well, and even within Canada, you've got those regional dialects.
Yeah.
Some are very strong if you get up into the maritime provinces.
Oh God, well, those are our people that way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, New England, a lot of New England has very strong accents, either the French Canadian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a lot of French Canadians and Portuguese where I grew up.
You told me when we prepared for this that you came out both as gay and in the kink and leather scene in New York City and Florida, am I correct?
Well, the first gay bar I went to was in Rhode Island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I definitely, like a lot of people, there are people that live the leather lifestyle. They live within the fraternity of leather.
Yes.
It's their identity. Well, it's a part of their identity. But they live that way. And then there are people like me, I think, who maybe not have fully 100% adopted this, but certainly understand that moving in that circle, leather bars are not just leather men. They're quite often, they're the kind of fetishy, weird people that don't quite fit in anywhere else.
Yes.
And then the bears showed up, and now it's very fluid, and I see the leather community struggling with this fluidity.
That's true.
And really it comes, you've got to define what makes me a man is not determined by what's swinging between my legs or not. It's not what my body looks like. It's 100% my identity, what's inside me, how I project. And I'm very interested to see how this turns out right now.
Regarding?
Well, my finger is not on the pulse of the current state of the leather community, but I know that right now there's something going on with the bootblacks resigning from IML, and the issue on how progressive and how inclusive they're being. And any gay man who has hung around in a leather bar for any amount of time has heard of the old guard and knows that there are people, they're stalwarts. And I can't say that I blame them in any way. There's two truths here.
If not more than that, even.
Well, as I see, the two major ones are either this is all I know and this is what I want and I don't like change, and this is just let me get through the rest of my life doing it this way. This is how we've always done it. It brings me comfort. It's what I identify with. And then we have the truth that if you want any organization or way of life to stay strong, you invite more people into it. It's the same argument with gay marriage. If you're a proponent of marriage and you want to strengthen the institution of marriage, denying people is not the way to keep it strong. It's not the way to get people to invest in it. It's not a way to be an institution that our culture is built on. You invite as many people in as you can to experience this brotherhood. Or now sisterhood as well. Well, that's how I see it. You got two choices. You can either stay with what you've been doing all the time, or you can stay strong and welcome new people. And you know what? If it evolves into something, it can always be what it is to you, but if it evolves into something where all people can feel comfortable, because really that's what we've always been. That's what it's always been. You know, kind of the image of the motorcycle rider, the rebel after the war, 1940, not following rules, you know.
Yes.
You know, how do you now close that up and say, these rebels in fishnets,
Yes.
you know, these rebels in stilettos saying, fuck it, who the hell are you to tell me?
Yes.
You know, what's right? You know, I always think of, you know, and I as I get older, you tend to lean a little more towards tradition, but you know, I've always liked I know in the leather community, the old school would tell you that you are gifted a lid. It is presented to you, it is placed on your
cover,
head.
you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
But I kind of like how Napoleon did it. He took the crown out of the Pope's hand and put it on his own head.
There's validity to both of those.
Yeah.
You know, there's never ever going to be an absolute in this.
Right.
So,
But if you're foundationally began out of rebellion against societal norms, this is just more of the same.
Yes.
This is just more of our tradition.
yes.
You know, we are expanding our circle. We are expanding our table. And
Do you mind if I?
oh no, please. You know, the more people we invite to the table, the better off we are. The stronger we are.
I absolutely agree.
You know, and
it's not going to change. It's going to be an evolving situation, and so this is what we need to face. We need to manage this.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's funny, as a short tangent, until I had a really good trans male friend, I did not realize how closely aligned we were, how similar our backgrounds were, how similar our story and our path was. But the one thing, the kind of the kernel, I think that's at the center of it is my trans friend and I have both been told, you'll never be real men.
Again, that's not your baggage to carry.
Yeah, but I mean, I identify with that.
Yes.
I identify with that. You know, he was a 13-year-old looking in the mirror just like I was, saying, I don't want to be this. What is this? I don't understand this. This is not me. This is not what I want.
Right.
You know? And then they come in and tell you, try as much as you want. You know? And what bothers me the most is it's the gay community telling trans people, you'll never be real men. You know?
I'll share a tidbit. I don't often share much about myself in an interview, but I have a trans niece.
Oh, really?
And all that has done for me as a person and for my relationship with my niece is just make it amazing.
Yeah. Well, I will, without expanding on it, I believe my friend Tripp has made me a better man.
That's a beautiful statement.
I believe that getting to know him and getting to know his path, and it seems so familiar to me. You know, a lot of people say that trans people shouldn't be under our umbrella because that's, gender identity and this is sexual orientation and they're not the same. But you know what? It really came down to that 13-year-old boy looking in the mirror saying, what the fuck is going on? This is not what I want. I don't, you know, and like, I really felt like I know what you're talking about. We are right as rain. Our paths were the same. And I will decide what kind of man I am.
Which brings me to you telling me that you were raised by a black drag queen. You know people want to hear this.
Well, as a gay man, I was fortunate. I was fortunate when I was young and I was just coming out, and I was a late bloomer. And a lot of it probably had to do with high school. And
at what age?
Well, I didn't. It's a funny thing when I probably can't really say I didn't come out until after college. I didn't come out until after college, but I started having sex with little boys in 6th grade when I was a child.
My goodness.
Yeah. I mean, a friend of mine that I went to school with, I started fooling around with in junior high school, and it didn't end until we graduated from high school. when he had gotten his girlfriend pregnant and asked her to marry her.
So for the clarification of anyone who may see the video, what do you constitute as sex at such a young age?
Oh yeah, well, you know, there was a lot of playing around, but it was pretty, I mean, I used to tie him up with shoelaces and stuff like that. I mean, we used to read Penthouse Forum and like do the things that people wrote in about.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
I love it.
as you know, 12-year-old boys masturbating into some bourbon and drinking it.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, just stupid thing. I tied his dick up with rope licorice and jerked him off and came all over it and ate it. Just you know, stuff like that. We didn't fuck that much, but he liked his ass eaten.
Okay.
But it was not a good thing. It was not good for my development because he was one of those people that as soon as the cum hit the sheets, he was racked with guilt and running off to call his girlfriend.
Okay.
So, yeah, who knew?
Bring us back to
the drag queen.
Your drag queen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was having sex with the neighborhood boys, but I was still a child. I was in junior high school. You know, it was through high school. I go to college. I'm not out. You know, until I opened my mouth, and then most people figured it out.
Okay.
You know, whether I was ready to admit it or not, they certainly figured it out.
Your purse came out, yeah.
There was that. So it's funny, even though I had already had sexual experiences with boys and knew what I preferred, that's a lot different than coming out.
Sure.
You know?
Yes.
So after college, I came back home and I was looking for a job, and I just needed to get a job and fast. And I went to this restaurant, and I went to use the restroom before the interview or whatever I was there for. And this guy came in and was at the urinal next to me, just struck up a pleasant conversation about God knows what. And we just chatted it up a little bit, and I guess I must have mentioned, well, I gotta go, I have an interview. And he said, oh, I'm the manager here.
Oh.
Yeah, so I got hired basically in the men's room.
Wow.
Without having to do anything to earn it. But that was, you know, a happy coincidence that began a good friendship. We worked together there, and then we left together and went to work somewhere else, and became very good friends. And he was a drag queen. He wasn't currently doing drag. He was considerably older than me, and I must have been 20-ish, 21, 22, something around there.
Okay.
But he really took me under his wing and really had that sense of, you know, this is how you survive as a gay man in this world. You know, these are the things you should know. These are the books you should have read. These are the movies you should have seen. These are the things that you just should know.
Wow.
These are your things. And there were a couple other friends of his that he called daughters. I don't know that, I never did drag, but I don't know what
that is a common.
They were definitely my sisters.
Yes.
And my aunt Anastasia, who was his friend, Ernie, and just all these really amazing experiences that I would not have had. You know, I grew up in a fairly affluent suburb, and of the, there was like 2,500 students in our high school, not a single black student. And it wasn't because we were in a segregated school or anything like that. There just weren't.
Yeah. Just the demographics.
I was 16 years old before I ever met a black person. And I met them at United Skates of America.
Oh.
Roller skating, yeah, in East Providence. And I went with this girl, and she introduced me to a friend of hers, and I just thought people would skate around the outside rink, and then there was like a dance floor in the middle, and he would dance, and I just thought he was amazing. Like, I never saw anybody move like that. So here I was, I say that to show that I was really kind of...
insulated.
Yeah. You know, I grew up a very suburban life. The things I remember, thinking back, when I was in high school, it was the first time I met a girl who lived in an apartment.
Oh, wow.
Like, doesn't everybody's family own their house?
Yeah.
You know, like I was totally insulated. I had no idea there was a world beyond. And then I meet this black drag queen and shows me that there is a world beyond, and there's one that you have to need to learn to navigate.
Yes.
You know, like
Yes.
you have to learn to survive. And, you know, there's an element of pride that you get when you see that your community has contributed to arts and culture
Yes.
and history and the fight, you know, that we've been fighting and fighting and fighting. You know, and this is back in the early 80s. So as I'm coming out, HIV has just become a thing.
Yes.
And that I had him navigating me through as well.
That could have saved your life at that time.
Probably did, because I did lose a few very, very close friends. So there was a lot to navigate, you know.
Yes.
The high school prom thing may have seemed like a big deal a year before, but now it's like, okay, now shit's getting real, you
Yes.
know. And so I mean, just little things like if you're in a city and you don't have any money or whatever, you should stay at the bathhouse because it's cheap and you can sleep for 12 hours or whatever.
Yes.
And like all these things he taught me. And there were times we did, like that we had to. So
but if you could pinpoint the most definitive piece he taught you, what would that be?
There is something that I say often that I truly believe, and I learned it from Ella, and that is, don't ever let the truth get in the way of a good story. If everything he ever told me was true, he would have had to be 90 years old.
Who knows?
You know, he just had stories, and you know, and it drew people to him.
Yes.
And he was entertaining. And never took himself very, very seriously. And you know, he's telling this story and people must be thinking, oh, come on. A count? Really? A diamond how big? Like, that's just craziness. But I realized that, you know, there's never an excuse for being a bore. You know what I mean?
There you go.
You get far in life if you can entertain people. And that probably was the thing Ronnie was best at. He was a born entertainer.
So speaking of entertainment, everybody watching this video is going to want to know about your entertainment work.
Oh, that.
Now, I would be remiss if we didn't focus a good deal on that.
Well, yeah.
So, how did it begin? How did you start in this?
Well, Liam and I had a partner a few years back in 2000, and he wanted to start the business, and he had just retired, and when I said, well, what do you want to do now? He said, I want to make porn. So we said, you know, fine, got all set up. This was before OnlyFans or Just for Fans or any of that existed, so you had to do it traditionally and start a website and get a billing company and all the other shit.
Yes.
And so in the beginning, that we did not think that we were going to have any participation in it at all. We just thought this was going to be your thing, but then soon realized we can't afford to hire porn actors. So just out of necessity, like, you know, you gotta make something. You gotta make something. So I resisted. I really did. But then I suppose after it was done, I don't know. You know. I'm sure it was just old shit of feeling that's not a respectable thing to do. But that is not how I feel anymore at all. I was a little uptight sexually. I did not like the idea of being exposed that way. I'm still very introverted, and I'm not one to, I don't know. I'm surprisingly shy for what I do for a living, I would say. And it just kind of snowballed. I didn't. I tell people this story about how low my expectations were. We had a couple friends that live in San Francisco, and one of them, Mac, was kind of like the prototype bear. He was the prototype Daddy Will Angell. He was on some of the first covers of Bear magazine.
Oh,
yeah. He was the Daddy Will long before Daddy Will existed. Very nice guy, and his partner is really into porn. And we were just talking, and apparently he was saying, Mac still owns the rights to like 10 or 15 of the films that he filmed back in the day, and we have them on some website, and they sell them, and we split it 50% or whatever. And he was like, we get a check for like $500 a month or whatever. And I thought, oh, well, that would be nice,
I'm surprised that's all with some of that vintage porn.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if that's more now.
Yeah.
This is going back. But that was how my sights were set. I thought, well, if we can make an extra $500 a month, it'll be good. That'll be nice. A lot of it, a lot of what inspired me to do it was, let's see, it's been 15 years now since my partner John died. And it was very unexpected. It was very sudden. He was 40 years old. And having that experience in my life where we had just bought a new house, we had just moved, and I felt like this is my forever, this is my dream. We had a little cabin in the woods out in the country. And having the experience of, going from one day of having everything I ever dreamed of to starting over the next, and the panic of how am I going to support? I just lost half my income. How am I going to survive? What am I going to do? And it was that idea. I was very fortunate that I met Liam 6 months after John died because I really needed supervision. I was desperate in grief. I was just deep in despair. And he really held my hand through it. But it was the desire to never visit that on him. He's considerably younger than me. That day will come for all of us. And how is he going to survive? I don't want him to have that fear of, what do I do? Am I going to lose the house? We just bought this house. So I started thinking, well, wait a second. If anything happened to me, they're still making an income, $500 a month, whatever. But in North Carolina, that paid half our mortgage. So that was really the motivator for me to say, get over how you feel about being exposed, or what you feel, whether this is a respectable job to have or not, or what your family or friends are going to think. The real issue here is that if something happened to you, this media can continue selling.
Yes.
And I've always told Liam, if anything happens to me, don't tell anybody. If I die, don't tell anybody.
Oh, okay.
I don't want people being weirded out, thinking I don't want to masturbate to a dead guy.
Well,
so I'm like, don't tell them.
There are numerous.
I know that, but I'm just worried about losing any subscribers.
I want to bring up something that was fascinating for me to learn when we were preparing for this chat. And I'm going to read this so that I'm hopefully getting the correct information. The sex that you depict is real. Viewers commend you for that. I would like to know, and I think that an audience would like to know, how do you achieve the realism that attracts people to your videos?
Well, I would think part of that is because we don't film like a traditional studio.
Yes.
There are no ancillary people running around. There's nobody holding a camera. I shoot with a lot of cameras because I want to just forget they're there. I don't want somebody hovering around with one. I don't want somebody calling direction. I just want it to be the actors.
Okay.
Yes. And the best you can do is kind of get caught up in the moment And once I get everything set up, I don't fiddle with it. I set the parameters and I kind of say like, okay, this is the play yard. You can stay within these boundaries, do whatever you want, just don't go outside them. And that's it. And hopefully, if people aren't thinking about, oh, hold on, let's do this, and somebody's not got a camera right in your face, it's easier to just let go and be in the moment and just kind of ride the wave. At least I've been able to,
But another thing you brought up here, and truly this was fascinating for me to learn, you prefer the realism, the tight angles, and therefore that affords more intense intimacy. Natural looking guys, real men.
Yeah. Well, we have to be very careful using that term.
Okay.
Because what is a real man? Natural is the right word.
Okay.
They're all real. There's no imitation men on the side, but natural looking men.
Okay. We'll use that.
I believe that there's a couple things at play here that in my experience, and I can only speak of my own experience, and what I feel has been successful for us, at least through the feedback I get, is I've always felt gay men have this propensity to have sex when it's not necessarily sex they're looking for. A lot of guys go out on a Friday night and they think, you know what, it would be so nice just to have some company. It would be so nice to hold someone and talk to them and have them look at me and recognize that I'm here and I'm feeling it. And a lot of gay men, and I can't say I'm any different, have gone out with that need and settled for going home and having sex with someone because they feel they don't know how else to fulfill that need. Okay. We think if you want intimacy, if you want to be held, if you want to be cuddled, you put out. And that's a shame, because I think there's a lot of people out there who would happily take you home and cuddle you and spoon you and kiss you and don't feel the need for insertive sex.
I agree.
I agree. So there's that. Especially, we started our second site during COVID. So that added to the loneliness, that added to the isolation, that added to people needing this in their lives, and now they can't go out and get, fuck around because the bars are closed and they're not allowing stuff like that and places with dark rooms or whatever, they're not doing that. And now it's, and now people are really being affected mentally, that they're really isolated and really feeling alone. And I hope that, as much as porn can, to be an antidote to that.
Yes.
It breaks my heart, like sometimes when a young man who identifies as a boy and likes daddies says to me, like, I give up. I don't think daddies exist. They just tell me what they think I want to hear to get in my pants, and as soon as they do, they're not much of a daddy anymore.
Okay.
They want this relationship, they want this mentorship, they want this man they can look up to, that they can trust, they can kind of open up to. And they realize that it's a guy that's just trying to fuck a young guy. I'm all the daddy you need until I'm done, and then I'm not really much of a daddy at all. So, I've had young men tell me, I give up on this fantasy that I can find this man, that fill this hole that's inside me. And that's heartbreaking to me, because it does exist.
Yes, I see it too.
It does exist.
Yeah.
And you're just young. But if you think that going out and putting your legs up is the way to foster that relationship, you might want to rethink that strategy. A serious man. Forever my quote was, when it's on profile sites or whatever, my mantra, my prescription for doing it right was, stop looking for Mr. Right and start being Mr. Right.
Yes.
I find it annoying when people say, I'm looking for Mr. Right, but I'm going to play around in the meantime until he shows up. Well, what makes you think Mr. Right is going to have any interest in you when he shows up?
Yeah.
If you're the town bicycle, that everybody's had a ride on.
I've never heard that expression. That's funny.
But you know what I mean? Like, if you want Mr. Right, be Mr. Right. That's what attracts Mr. Right. And that doesn't mean you're not a gay man. You can have sex. People have sex. It happens, You can do things, but, make sure that you're a person worth investing in. Anyway, I'm getting way off the topic. Our porn.
Yes.
Our porn. I know that people want to see themselves in the porn because of all the questions, of all the comments, criticism that I get. And to address that, when we lived in North Carolina, it was not as easy to find diversity to work with. We were really out in the middle of nowhere. It was a real commitment for people to come. There was nowhere else for them to work while they were there. And we used to get called out quite a bit for what people saw as a lack of diversity on our site, particularly with men of color. But what I always say, anytime I get a guy sending me a message, like, the friendly way to do it is, are you into guys like me? Or I wish I saw more guys like me on your site. And then the other way to do it is, I don't see any men of color on your site. That's suspicious. It's like, honey, don't be suspicious. If you want to say something, say it. You want to ask it, ask it. Come right out. Say it. Because what I feel, and anytime somebody sends me that message, I say, have you applied? Don't criticize me that there's not enough men of color on my site unless you're ready to come and do it. And I'm happy to have you do it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I can only choose from the people that apply to work on my site. And my suspicion is a lot of black guys don't want to work with a dominant white man. That's not how they want to be portrayed. There's plenty of black guys that are into race play and stuff like that. And I don't know that that's really our aesthetic. I did have a kid that worked on the site, and I felt like I'd let every other white kid come and tell me what he's into and done it for them. How do I tell this kid race play is not, that's a step too far for me. I'm not, am I not being discriminatory by telling him your fetish isn't valid? I told him, I'll do this with you, but there's going to be very strict limitations on what I can and cannot do, and things that I will not say. But what I've decided on that is, that's not my lane. I have just as many black men on my site as I have Arab men, as I have trans men, as I have Asian men. It's not the feature of our site. You know what it is? Men in their 50s. That's what I didn't see in porn. It's not my job to expose every minority that has been left out of porn. You've got a phone, make your own porn. If you're not seeing enough of what you want to see in my porn, by all means, make your own. Because what I didn't see in porn was guys like me pushing 60. That's my lane. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what I'm here.
I can totally appreciate that.
Yeah. And I am happy to take applications.
But before we talk about that, and I do want to talk about that, I do want to come back though to something that I was seeing your porn long before any of this, and I always felt this is just my opinion looking at it as the outsider. What I felt made it so desirable was, of course, the barebacking and the natural sex there. I'd like you to talk about that a little bit, and specifically, how has the community, or maybe the larger porn industry, reacted to this?
Well, with the caveat that I am not an expert in this field. Like I said, I've never worked for another company. I've never filmed for another studio. Just my impression. We started at a time when it was still very condom only. It was kind of like just breaking away from that. There were directors, managers, studios that absolutely refused to feature bareback films. They would not do it.
Yes.
As far as I can see, all of them are either changed their tune or out of business. Because, not to burst anyone's bubble, but porn is a fantasy. I hate to say it. It is a fantasy. It's a fantasy. And yes, we had a time when the reality was we have to.
Yes.
We have no other choice.
Yeah.
We have to portray condom sex as hot, sexy, good sex.
Yes.
We had to. But we are not there anymore. You know, now, and it's funny, I had this conversation with a friend of mine yesterday. There's a couple trends that I've seen. One is this, somebody posted on Twitter, and I'm sure everybody's heard it because it was trending yesterday, about this guy that said something about not liking to fuck people on PrEP because it implies to him that they're too whorish, that they fuck around too much, and got grilled roundly for it because it's kind of ignorant. But I read it day before yesterday, and I thought, ooh, what a dumb thing to say. And then yesterday it was trending. His post had been flying all over, hundreds of people shooting back, hitting back, saying, you know, no, PrEP is about people that care for themselves and their communities. You know, this is something we can stop, and this is something we all have to play a hand in stopping.
Yes.
As far as porn goes, I understood that there was some directors and some artists that refused to not use condoms. And I understand where that came from, but I really feel strongly about the fact that if you are looking to porn actors for your medical advice or whether you should wear a condom, you are not fit to have sex. You're a danger to yourself. You should get that information from your partners and from your healthcare provider, your primary care physician. You know, and there's plenty of specialists to go talk to. There's plenty of organizations that will fill your head with as much knowledge you can get. And if you can't do that, then don't have sex. You're a danger to yourself.
Aren't we in this particular piece, aren't we coming back to what...
I don't think any company makes condom porn anymore.
Well, but to come back to who is that actor to you? You know, do you feel that actor is someone with whom you could share this information like you were saying earlier? I'm wondering if that's where some of these people are going to feel they could ask this person, but not the doctor.
Well, I don't know.
You know,
well, if you don't have that kind of relationship with your doctor, get yourself another doctor.
There's
really,
that, yes.
There's no excuse. That's first step where you get your medical advice. But it did seem like there was a lot of controversy back and forth about, you know, agents and directors telling actors, well, I'll never work with you again. You'll never work again if you work condomless. You're done. You know, that's gone out the window. It really has with PrEP.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it's a fantasy. You're depicting a fantasy. Unless you have a fetish for condoms, people really don't want to see it.
I would agree.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
The other thing, so this friend of mine that I was talking to yesterday does a podcast in LA and is planning a documentary, and part of it is it's gonna really focus around, well, one element's gonna be bug chasing. Like people trying to purposely get themselves paused.
Yes.
Which now is crazy because everybody's on PrEP. So it's kind of like this weird fetish that people are wanting to get paused, but they're on PrEP. So it's kind of like this weird safety level of a fetish. So I'm very interested to see what this documentary is.
And I want to see it.
Because you ask people about, and they're like, does that still exist? Do people still do that? They're still doing that.
When we finish here, I would like to speak privately with you about that for a moment. Yes.
Yeah. Everything. You know, if I've learned nothing else in this business, is everything is a fetish.
Yes.
Everything and anything is a fetish.
Yes.
I don't care what you are into. There is someone out there that is dying to get down with you with it.
Yes, I agree.
But you know, before we go, you did say
I do want to come to the application piece of this. Somebody somewhere is going to watch this video, and they're going to say, how can I work with these men?
Okay, well, there's an application on our website. So what I'll say about that, and applying to porn companies in general, is this is a business. It is not your fantasy fulfillment. It's not about you crossing something off your bucket list. At the end of the day, it is a business.
Yes.
And any company, whether it's us or anyone else, that hires you is going to have an expectation that you can deliver certain things. You know, don't ask me if you can wear a mask, because no, you cannot. Don't, if you, that's when it becomes, this is more about me. I'm just trying to get off. This is my sexual fantasy.
Yes.
And I'm looking at it like I'm your employer. I'm cutting you a check. We're working,
Yes.
We definitely work with people that we've developed a relationship with. I mean, that's really more our aesthetic.
Yes.
We feature male intimacy more than we feature the sex act.
Yes.
When I edit, I want to see people's faces. I know what a dick going into an asshole looks like. I've seen it a million times. I want to see the reaction. I want to see the face. I want to see the connection. I do like the idea of just like having a camera right here, like just on your shoulder, like that pillow talk, those sweet, intimate moments. Those are the things that really get my motor going. I am so much more into the aftercare. Like, the fucking's great, but it's really the cuddling and holding and kind of really just like wallowing in it afterwards that I really, really enjoy. And, and I think, at least from what I've heard from people, they enjoy that too. The aftercare is as much, but that gets back to what I say. When we have a real need for intimacy and we allow sex, it just doesn't scratch the itch. Some people, God bless the people that go out and just looking to get laid and they're just looking to get fucked, and that satisfies them completely.
Yeah. But those are two different things.
They are, and that's not what most people are. We're human. We've got all these other needs wrapped up in it, and that's why sex is such a minefield. I've really learned, maybe the reason why I can let go on film like that is that I have really learned an appreciation for transactional sex, where we're spending this time together, and and I like to do this even in my personal life when it's not on film, like kind of having a conversation like this is we're going to admit that this is a finite amount of time that we're going to spend together.
Yes.
And during this time, we're free to do whatever, we're free to say whatever, we're free to let ourselves go and say the words we want to hear ourselves say, and be treated the way and ask for what we want.
Yes.
And because, when I'm working, it is transactional. I'm paying them for this. And yeah, I'm sure I would have sex with plenty of them without paying them, but when it's an arrangement like that, nobody brings their baggage into it. It's not about validating them. I'm validating you with the paycheck. I chose you. I had 100 different applicants and I wanted to work with you. So there is that validation, but it's not like picking somebody up and like, why didn't they call me again? Or why don't they want to see me again? Like, they're not, when it's transactional, when you hire a professional, when you hire an escort, when you make porn, when you hire a massage therapist.
Yes.
It's easy. Everybody's on the same page. We're having sex just to feel good. This is not about a date tomorrow. Right. This is not, don't bring what your ex-boyfriend did to you, all that. You can kind of just let yourself go and just enjoy the moment, And I think that's been good exercise for me in my personal life. That I do my best now to not bring in my old hurt feelings, my old disappointments. I see. You know what I mean? This is a new person. They're not responsible for any of the shit that's been done to you or whatever anybody said to you. This is a new person. And you're just going to spend some time with them.
I think you've hit upon a beautiful point there. And I think that's a lesson a lot of people can learn.
Yeah. We have tried to feature it in some of our porn. We worked with Will Tantra, who is an excellent kind of body coach and tantric sexual coach. Somebody who would be interesting to talk to. We both made a film with him individually, and Liam's he's very much like taking you through the exercise of this is how you ask for your needs to be met. sexually. This is how asking your partner what feels good to you. How do you like me to do this? Do you like me to use my mouth? Do you like me to use my hands?
Communication.
And this conversation that never happens when you pick some trick up or whatever.
Right.
There's never any meeting of the minds, let's just get to it.
Yes.
And then you wonder why you didn't get what, that could have been better. Well, it could have been better if you had done a little prep work and said, hey, this is what I like.
Totally agree.
Or, and it's funny, when I noticed during the film, and especially during editing it, his approach was very much, can I eat your ass? Can I you know what I mean? It was foundation. The communication was the foreplay.
Yes.
And if you really think about that and you really get into that and you get yourself all worked up and sometimes just telling somebody the things you want to do to them is such an aphrodisiac,
Yes.
Just admitting this is what I need. And you know what? Fine. You want to be just the cum dump whore, and just be as generic as a bottom can be, then do that. You know what I mean?
But again, you're talking about multi-layered things that represent different elements, and
yeah. Well, if you're not gonna get, if we're not going to produce a product that shows people how to do that, then what are you watching?
Speaking of, how many videos do you do in a year generally?
Right now we do, with the two sites, we release weekly, alternately on either site. So we do 48 a year.
Okay. What's been your greatest achievement with all of that?
Well, I really can't say.
You can allude.
I could, but if I'm being honest, greatest achievement, although I feel like my attitude, my outlook on sex and how fulfilling it should be has changed greatly, and so much for the better. But I
can see that.
But if I'm being honest, if I'm being honest, we have achieved a level of financial success that I did not predict, that I didn't see coming. When he told me they could make an extra $500 a month, and I thought, wow, that's where I set the bar. And I thought, ooh, if I make $500 a month, I'm going to be doing great, and Trey will be taken care of. I don't know if I would say that and go that far. But then when I made $500 a month, I thought, okay, now I'm on 1,000.
Yeah.
But that was 10 years ago.
Biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge was another whole can of worms. So I will just say, without expanding on it, because I have nothing bad to say about anyone. I really don't. There are people in my life that I have loved deeply that have been a great disappointment, unfortunately. Okay. And there was kind of some turmoil that came along with this business because we started it with our partner. And I don't wish to say anything cross about him. I think he has some issues to deal with on his own that is not for me to criticize or put him down. But things got ugly when he left. He wanted the site.
Oh, wow.
And when I refused to comply, he made it clear to me that if his demands were not met, and he sent me an email stating as much, that if you don't comply, I'm going to tell people a story about you that nobody will ever want to work with you again. And he did. He did everything he could to destroy us in the business because I refused to comply. I would not give him the business. And he sought to destroy us, which is unfortunate because he's a person that I love deeply.
Yeah.
I really did. and I have no ill will towards. But, you know, it's one thing to say, this is a person that I love, they've moved on, I have no ill feelings, please go live a great life. You know, the best solution for everyone here is to go live a fantastic life. So that was the biggest challenge for me, beyond stressful, beyond heartbreaking, to have a person that I cared about saying vicious, vicious lies about me because I would not comply. And we lived in the middle of nowhere. We were defenseless to this. Now we're here in California. Now we know people, and we were very isolated there. We were in a town of 3,000 people. We didn't have friends. We didn't, and what hurt so much was, as much a person who you love turning on you that way, but total strangers who never met me or know me from a hole in the wall, feeling the need to chime in with their opinion on whether they believe these things or not. It was devastating to me because I felt defenseless against it. You know, now that we've worked for years and now that we've worked with enough people, we had actors cancel on us. We had actors that wouldn't work with us. And our defense to that was, you are free to ask any person that's ever worked with us what their impression was, or if they saw any evidence of these terrible things. And one guy called us back like within a half hour, and he said, I spoke to 3 people and everybody just raved about how nice you were to work with. So, you know, and that's real, and that's the funny thing when the defense to that is when somebody says something like that. A good friend of mine got a message from him and one of his friends saying to avoid me and what bad news I was, and his response was, has that been your experience with him? And he said, oh well, I've never met him. And he said, well, he's my friend and I know him personally, and that's not my experience. And you wonder how a person can just say, I don't know you, never met you. And I know what it is. People are kind-hearted and they don't anticipate they're being manipulated. And when they hear somebody say, this is what somebody did to me, they think, oh my God, you poor thing, that's so terrible. It never dawns on people to say, am I being told the truth right now? You know? So that was for me when I really wanted to kind of cocoon and like, why have I done this? Like, this is spiraling out of control. I'm too out there. You know, people that don't know me at all have something to say. But you know what? Such is life. This is what I've chosen. I've put myself in this position, like it or not, you know? So the way I got myself through that, and I continue to now, is I say to myself, we all get the life we deserve.
Yes, I can see that.
We all get the life we deserve. If you are a liar and a manipulator, sooner or later,
it goes around.
Sooner or later, you will be found out. You know, and if I'm a terrible person, I will have to answer for that sooner or later. I can't hide it from everybody. You know what I mean? So, and if you're a person that tells lies about other people, that's who you are. You know?
But the question everybody gets, what's the biggest misconception about you?
Well, that's hard to say. I don't know. That's very hard to say. Okay. An obvious one. And I joke about this all the time. When, excuse me. Oh, Daddy, oh my God, you must have boys. You must get home from work and they're just on their knees, ready to service you as soon as you get in the door. And you just must fuck 24 hours a day. And you must, just have this life. And I'm like, I'm a 57-year-old man. I come home from work and I want to sit down and watch the news and eat my dinner. You know, like, no, I don't want a blowjob right now. You know what I mean? No, I'm not having sex 24 hours a day. I'm an old fucking man. How much sex I'm pushing 60. How much sex do you think I need?
Let them have their fantasy.
Let them have it. If you were here, that's what would happen. You would bring that to me. But, you know, I feel like I have I could not be happier with my sex life. I have a partner who I am deeply head over heels in love with, who I feel a true sense of partnership in all things that we do. We've opened ourselves up to experiencing family and close relationships with other people, both sexually and non-sexually. You know, I couldn't be more fulfilled. You know, I couldn't be happier. But no, I'm not a 24-hour a day kind of thing.
Well, Will Angell, I wish we had unlimited time, and I wish I could sit here and talk with you all day, but alas, technology only gives us so much.
Right. Well,
but
I would like
to thank you, and thank you for having me to your home, and thank you with the tech.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
But an absolute pleasure getting to meet you a little bit.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out the Fireside Chat channel for more chapters in the history of leather. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe.